Who is Jesus Christ, the Son of Man, the Son of God, the Son of the living God? We go to Proverbs 8:22, and we'll carry on with more verses. The Lord possessed me in the beginning of his way, before his works of old. We go to John 1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. We go to another place in John, the same was in the beginning with God. He also mentions that which was from the beginning. Jesus mentions in Revelation 3 that he's the beginning of the creation of God. He mentions in Revelation 1 that he's the beginning and the ending. In Colossians 1, he's called the firstborn of every creature. And we know that he is the Word, and the Word was with God. In Genesis 1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. God made all things by his word. Jesus is the firstborn of creation, according to Colossians 1. Jesus is the beginning of the creation of God, according to Revelation chapter 3. And we're going to see in Proverbs 8 this matches, because Jesus is called the firstborn, the beginning, that which was from the beginning, in the beginning, and not before. You see, the Word was with God, but the Father spoke at a particular time in eternity. His Word was with him, but he hadn't spoken until creation was made. And the firstborn of that creation, the beginning of that creation, was his Word, which is his Son. Proverbs 8:22, the Lord possessed me. Who's me? That's his Son. The Lord possessed me in the beginning of his way, before his works of old. We see in Proverbs chapter 30 verse 4, talking about his Son, who have ascended up into heaven and who have descended, and so on, and what is his name, and his Son's name. So we know that this is referring to the Son, and we will see in context. The Lord possessed me in the beginning of his way, before his works of old. Next verse, I was set up from everlasting, from the beginning, or ever the earth was. So he was set up. The Lord possessed him in the beginning of his way. He was set up from everlasting, from the beginning. Just like John says, that which is from, that which we have seen and we have testified. The same was in the beginning with God. The beginning of the creation of God, the firstborn. So here we see clearly that I was set up from everlasting. You see, God the Father had his word, but he hadn't spoken his word. The word was set up from everlasting, from the beginning, or ever the earth was. When there was no depths, I was brought forth. When there were no fountains abounding with water. You see this, we're supposed to rightly divide line upon line, here a little, there a little, and precept. Jesus is called the beginning of the creation of God. John says that which was in the beginning. John said in the beginning. Genesis 1 says in the beginning. And then we go to Proverbs here. When there were no depths, I was brought forth. Brought forth is to be born. Matches Colossians 1, the firstborn. Matches Revelation 3, the beginning of the creation of God. Before the mountains were settled, before the hills, was I brought forth. You see, that was the beginning. That's where it said in Proverbs, I believe it's 8:21, the Lord possessed me in the beginning of his way, not before. Just like John said, the Word was in the beginning. Just like Jesus is the beginning of the creation of God, the firstborn of every creature. So while he had not yet made the earth, nor the fields, nor the highest part of the dust of the world, when he prepared the heavens, now it's talking about creations. When I prepared the heavens, I was there. When he set a compass upon the face of the depth, when he established the clouds above, when he strengthened the fountains of the deep, when he gave the sea his decree that the waters should not pass his commandment, when he appointed the foundations of the earth, then I was by him, as one brought up with him, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing always before him. You see, the Lord possessed him in the beginning of his way. What was the beginning? In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. That was the beginning of the creation, who is Jesus, his Son. Then I was by him as one brought up with him, and I was daily his delight. We go to Proverbs chapter 30. It's only going to be a quick video and then we'll finish. Proverbs chapter 30 verse 4. Who have ascended up into heaven? Now we know that the scripture says in John, no man have ascended up into heaven, but he that came down from heaven, even the Son of Man which is in heaven. So that's the Son of God, the Son of the living God, the revelation that was revealed by heaven, by the Spirit to Peter, who Jesus was, not the flesh, but who Jesus was. And he said, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. Here we have who have ascended up into heaven or descended, who have gathered the wind in his fists, who have bound the waters in a garment, who have established all the ends of the earth. What is his name, and what is his Son's name? If thou canst tell. This is still the book of Proverbs, the same person that wrote Proverbs chapter 8, the Lord possessed me in the beginning of his way. That's who he's talking about, is his Son. Here, what is his name, and what is his Son's name? If thou canst tell. So Jesus is the beginning of the creation of God. He's the firstborn. Let's just go to the firstborn. We'll go on to that scripture and then I think we're finished. Colossians chapter 1. I don't want to make it too long so you lot can understand better and clearer. So we go down to, we start from verse 13. Who have delivered us from the power of darkness and have translated us into the kingdom of his dear Son. That's the same Son in Proverbs chapter 30. That's the same Son in chapter 8, talking about wisdom. But Apostle Paul said, Christ, the power of God, the wisdom of God, and he made the world by his wisdom, and so on. Who is Christ, the power and wisdom of God? That's the same that was with him in the beginning. The Lord possessed me in the beginning of his way. He's the firstborn, and we're going to see that. So he's delivered us into the kingdom of his dear Son, in whom we have redemption through his blood, even the forgiveness of sins, who is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of every creature. So Jesus, the Word, is the firstborn of every creature. For by him, who, the firstborn, the beginning of the creation of God, that which was in the beginning, where he came into the world, and he made the world, and the world knew him not. You know, all things were made for by him were all things created, that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him. You see, the Father created all things by his word, which was the begotten Son, the firstborn. You know, the scripture says, when he bringeth in the first begotten into the world. So he brings in the first begotten into the world. The first begotten already existed before the world, because it was that which was from the beginning. In the beginning was the Word. You see, the Father is, you know, never had no beginning, never had no ending. But Jesus could say in Revelation, I'm the beginning and the ending, because he was the beginning of the creation of God. You know, so we need to study these things out. This is truth I'm giving you, that the Son of God is in heaven. The Son of God is not the Father. The Son of God is the hand of the Lord. The Son of God is what the Father used to make all things, to create all things by him and for him. This is what the scripture says, and that he's the firstborn. I'm sure clearly we all know what firstborn means. He's the firstborn of every creature. He's that which was from the beginning. He's the beginning of the creation of God. He was brought forth, according to Proverbs 8. You know, he was brought forth. He was the beginning of the creation of God. Clearly God has a son, and they are one. So bless you all, and we'll do more studies on this in the future.